Hi, friends. I'm Max Lucado. Welcome to Fresh Hope. I am so glad you joined me. Today, we continue our series based on my book, You'll Get Through This. We're studying Joseph, whose incredible story is recorded in the book of Genesis. I mean, if this guy didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. Thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, wrongfully imprisoned. And he must have wondered if his suffering would ever end. But you know, the remarkable thing about Joseph is that he never took his eye off his God, and in turn, God never let go of him. We can learn a lot from the story of Joseph. Some time ago, I found myself in the waiting room at my doctor's office. I looked around. A mother was holding a sleeping baby. A fellow dressed in a suit thumbed through a magazine. A woman looked at her phone and sighed. The task of the hour? Waiting. We don't like to wait. We're the giddy-up generation. We weave through traffic. We frown at the person with too many items in the express checkout lane. We drum our fingers while the song downloads or the microwave heats our coffee. And we don't like to wait. Not on the doctor, the traffic, or the pizza. Not on God. Take a moment and look around you. Do you realize where we sit? This planet is God's waiting room. The young couple in the corner waiting to get pregnant. The fellow with the briefcase, he has resumes all over the country, waiting on work. The elderly woman with the cane, a widow, been waiting for a year for one tearless day, waiting on God to come, to help, to heal. You know, if anyone knew the furniture of God's waiting room, Joseph did. We can read the Genesis account of Joseph's life from start to finish in less than an hour, which gives the impression that all these challenges took place before breakfast one morning. But we'd be wiser to pace our reading over a couple of decades. Take chapter 37 into a dry cistern and sit there for a couple of hours while the sun beats down. Recite the first verse of chapter 39 over and over for a couple of months. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Joseph needed at least this much time to make the 750-mile journey to Egypt. Then there were days on the auction block. A decade in Potiphar's house, supervising the servants. Tick-tock, tick-tock. You know, time moves slowly in a foreign land. And time stands still in a prison where Joseph had been thrown, wrongfully accused of assaulting Potiphar's wife. In prison, Joseph had an encounter with Pharaoh's butler. The butler was disturbed by a dream he had had. Joseph interpreted it and then asked him for a favor. Reading from Genesis 40 and verse 14, "Remember me when it is well with you, and please show kindness to me. Make mention of me to Pharaoh and get me out of this house." Joseph hurried back to his cell and no doubt collected his belongings. He wanted to be ready when the call came that he was to be freed. A day passed. Then a week, then a month. As it turned out, according to verse 23, Pharaoh's cupbearer promptly forgot all about Joseph. On the page of your Bible, the space between that verse and the next is scarcely wider than a hair ribbon. It takes your eyes a split second to see it. Yet, chapter 41 starts like this. 2 years passed, and Pharaoh had a dream. 2 years. 24 months of silence. 104 weeks of waiting. 730 days of wondering. Plenty of time to grow bitter. Folks have given up on God in shorter time, but not Joseph. And on a day that began like any other, he heard a stirring at the dungeon entrance. "We're here for the Hebrew. Pharaoh wants the Hebrew." And so Joseph and Pharaoh met for the first time. The king hadn't slept well, and dreams troubled his rest. His counselors had no answers for what the dreams meant. Finally, the butler remembered Joseph, the man who had interpreted his dream in prison, and he told Pharaoh about Joseph's skill. Joseph's encounters with Mrs. Potiphar and the butler hadn't ended so well. In both cases, Joseph had mentioned the name of God. Perhaps he should keep his faith under wraps, but he didn't. He says in chapter 41 and verse 16, "Not I, but God. God will set Pharaoh's mind at ease." Jail time didn't devastate Joseph's faith. It deepened it. And you, well, you aren't in prison, but you may be infertile or in limbo or in between jobs or in search of health, help, a house or a spouse. Then again, you may be in prison. Are you in God's waiting room? If so, here's what you need to know. While you wait, God works. Jesus said in John 5:17, "My Father is always at his work." He never stops. And just because you are idle, don't assume God is. Joseph's story appeared to stall out in chapter 40. Our hero was in shackles, but while Joseph was waiting, God was working. He assembled the characters. God placed the butler in Joseph's care. He stirred the sleep of the king with odd dreams. He confused Pharaoh's counselors. And at just the right time, God called Joseph to duty. He's been working for you as well. "Be still and know that I am God," reads the sign on God's waiting room wall. You can rest because God is busy. Remember God's word through Moses to the Israelites. Exodus 14:14, "The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." The Israelites saw the Red Sea ahead of them and heard the Egyptians behind them, but what the former slaves could not see was God creating a path, his breath from heaven separating the waters. God was working for them. To wait, biblically speaking, is not to assume the worst, fret, or take control, nor is waiting inactivity. Waiting is a sustained effort to stay focused on God. To wait is to do what the psalmist said in chapter 37 and verse 7, "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him." Nehemiah shows us how to do this. While serving the king of Persia, he got word that hostile forces had flattened the walls of Jerusalem. The few remaining Jews were in great trouble, Nehemiah 1:3. Nehemiah responded with prayer. In chapter 1 and verse 11, "O Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and give success to your servant today." Nehemiah could not leave his post and go to Jerusalem. Even if he could, he had no resources with which to rebuild the walls. So he waited on the Lord in prayer. 4 months later, Nehemiah was appointed to a spot on the king's Jerusalem commission, and Nehemiah's request was immediate. "Give your servant success today." God answered the request 4 months later. Waiting is easier said than done. Doesn't come easily for me. I've been in a hurry my whole life. I used to put my wristwatch on the inside of my arm so I wouldn't lose the millisecond it took to turn my wrist. I really wonder if I could have obeyed God's ancient command to keep the Sabbath. The Sabbath was created for frantic souls like me, people who need this reminder: the world will not stop if you do. And what of this command in Exodus 34? 3 times a year, all your men are to appear before the sovereign Lord, the God of Israel. I will drive out the nations before you and enlarge your territory, and no one will covet your land when you go up there 3 times each year to appear before the Lord your God. That's verses 23 and 24. God instructed the promised land settlers to stop their work 3 times a year and gather for worship. All commerce, government, and industry came to a halt. Can you imagine this happening today? Our country would be utterly defenseless. Yet God promised to protect the territory. No one will covet your land. God used the pilgrimage to teach this principle. If you wait in worship, I will work for you. Daniel did this. His people had been oppressed for almost 70 years. Daniel entered into a time of prayer on their behalf, and for 21 days, no response. Then, on the 22nd day, an angel of God appeared, and he explained the delay. Daniel's prayer was heard on the first day. The angel was dispatched with a response. Daniel 10, 12 through 13 records the words of the angel. That very day I was sent here to meet you, but for 21 days the mighty evil spirit blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the top officers of the heavenly army, came to help me so that I was able to break through these spirit rulers. From an earthly perspective, nothing was happening. From a heavenly perspective, a battle was raging. Now, what if Daniel had given up? What if you give up? Don't. For heaven's sake, don't. All of heaven is warring on your behalf. In the days leading up to the war with Germany, the British government commissioned a series of posters to be printed. The idea was to capture encouraging slogans on paper and distribute them about the country. Capital letters in bold typeface were used, and a simple 2-color format was selected. The only graphic was the crown of King George VI. The first poster was printed in September of 1939. Your courage, your cheerfulness, your resolution will bring us victory. Soon thereafter, a second poster was produced. Freedom is in peril. Defend it with all your might. These 2 posters appeared up and down the British countryside, in pubs, stores, restaurants, railroad platforms. They were everywhere. A third poster was printed, yet never distributed. Over 2.5 million copies were made, yet never seen until 60 years later, when a bookstore owner in northeast England discovered one in a box of old books he had purchased at an auction. It read, "Keep calm and carry on." The poster bore the same crown and style and colors of the first 2 posters, and for whatever reason, it was never released to the public. The bookstore owner framed and hung it on the wall, and it became so popular that the bookstore began producing identical images of the original design on coffee mugs, postcards, and posters. Everyone, it seemed, appreciated the reminder from another generation to keep calm and carry on. Isaiah 40 and verse 31 says, "Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength, and they shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Friend, you'll get through this waiting room season. And as you wait, you're not alone. The doctor will step out of his office and take a seat next to yours just to keep you company. Not every physician will do that, but ours will. Our great physician will. You will get through this.
You don't have to stay close. As long as you're somewhere out there, that's enough for me. I don't need to hold you near me, don't need promises to keep. Just the thought that you are breathing somewhere in this world I see. Even if I'm not beside you, even if you never know, there's a quiet kind of comfort just in knowing you still glow. I don't need forever, I just need you to exist. You don't have to stay with me, you don't have to feel the same. Just as long as you're still out there, calling softly through my days. You don't have to look my way, you don't have to be my home. It's enough to know you're living in a world I'm not alone. I won't chase you through the distance, won't disturb your chosen life. I'll just keep you in my silence, like a star that shines at night. Through the dark and through the blue, I still think of you. You don't have to stay with me, you don't have to feel the same. Just as long as you're still out there, calling softly through my days. You don't have to look my way, you don't have to be my home. It's enough to know you're living in a world I'm not alone. I don't need to be your light, I don't need to cross your mind. All I need is just the truth that you're somewhere still alive.